Welcome back to Unlimited Recaps. Today, we'll be diving into a horror drama from 2021 titled Girl in the Basement. A woman is seen with a girl on her lap. They appear to be on their way to the hospital, and the girl appears to be suffering breathing problems. When they eventually go to the hospital, which is some time later, the man tells the woman to keep her mouth shut and not to speak as he carries the girl inside. Once inside the hospital, they make a help request. The mom watches from the window as the nurses rush the girl to treatment. After that, the scene shifts and transports us 20 years into the past. A family seated at a table is visible. Don and Renee, a husband and wife team, along with their two children, Amy and Sara, comprise the family. Don refuses to let Sara go, even though she claimed to be going to a campfire party without asking his permission. He gives her the order to enter her chamber. Due to her rebellious nature, Sara leaves the house covertly. Chris, her boyfriend who rides a motorcycle, has arrived to get her. After kissing each other, they go to the celebration. Chris plays the guitar and performs a song for Sara as they enjoy their time together in the fields during the celebration. She responds that she feels the same way when he declares his love for her. Back at home, Renee tries to comfort her daughter from behind the door, not realizing that Sara is not in her room. Nevertheless, when Don, who is furious, uses the keys to unlock her room, he discovers that Sara has slipped out the window. Don seemed to be furious at his daughter. When Sara returns home the following morning, Don is waiting at the front entrance and he sees Chris. Don politely requests that Sara enter the house through the front entrance when she tries to do so from the back. He angrily demands explanations from Sara as she tries to enter. She informs Don that it's none of his concern and that she's going to go away the day she becomes 18 in response to his question about when he gave her permission to date someone. When he realizes it, he yells at her and tells her that she must follow his rules for the duration that she is in his home. Sara escapes to her room as Renee breaks up the fight. Subsequently, Amy visits Sara, and they converse. Amy tells Sara not to get into a fight with Don. Sara labels him as insane and demands that someone confront him. Renee, the girl's mother, overhears the girl's chat. Sara discloses her intention to move out upon becoming 18. She informs Amy and Renee that her goal is to begin her global travels from Florida. Don, though, overhears their chat and devises some sinister schemes. In order to keep Sara from leaving him, he begins by tidying and creating a bomb shelter in their basement. Sara has finished her graduation 3 months later, and her 18th birthday is quickly approaching. One day, Sara is on the phone with Chris as Don trims some yard trees. Sara gets Renee asking her about Don. She is informed by Sara that he is in the garden. Renee says she wants to know what Don is doing in the basement since she feels like he's been spending too much time there recently and she's scared. Jokingly, Sara suggests that she look into it on her own. Renee claims Don warned her that there are rats below, and since she detests rats, she declined to go. Sara says she's talking to her boyfriend Chris and declines her invitation to go shopping. Don and Sara are the only ones left in the house when Renee leaves. Something that Don is going to undertake will permanently alter Sara's life. He asks Sara to assist him with moving some items. After hanging up, Sara heads over to assist him. After moving a bucket inside the basement, Don locks her inside before heading out. Sara is utterly stunned by her father's actions. She tries to use the keypad to open the door, but as she enters the incorrect code, the room becomes dark and the lights go out. She looks into the bucket, which is stocked with clothing and other necessities like a flashlight. Sadly, Don hears her plea for assistance via the vent and covers it. Now Sara is stuck within the bomb bunker, which is soundproof. As night sets, Renee and Amy, who had assumed Sara had gone to see a friend, began to worry about her since she still hasn't returned and hasn't even given them a call. Don comforts Renee, telling her that they should go to bed because Sara will return in the morning, despite her want to call the police. Renee walks out, asking Amy to phone Chris. There are still plenty to come beyond day 1 on day 2. Sara's living like an animal in a cage and relieving herself in a pot. The door's keypad only permits 3 attempts before cutting off the light and airflow in the space. By day 4, Sara is screaming through the vent for assistance every chance she gets. She flanks Don and tries to go outside when he comes to check on her, but another door stops her. Don pulls her back into the room and explains that she should have listened to him and that this is the result of her own behavior. Sara implores him to let her go, but he responds that he is unable to do so. He informs her that she can have blankets and books only if he says so, and that she will only be able to have food, clothing, and air if he permits it. She will now have to earn every privilege. When she doesn't respond to his question about if she understands, Don smacks her before raping her with his own daughter and walking away. Once inside the home, Renee phones the police and informs the officer that Sara wouldn't have left like way and that she might have suffered a personal injury. Don arrives and uses Sara's plans to start in Florida and visit all 50 states by the time she is 18 to convince the officer that she has ran away from home. In response, Renee claims that Sara hasn't even had her birthday yet and that she wouldn't leave without bidding farewell. She claims that it was only a dream and not a plan. The officer notes that Sara will soon turn 18 and that she is free to go wherever she pleases. He also notes that he has dealt with situations similar to this one in the past and that there isn't much they can do. By day 7, Sara is hurt and bruised, and she turns to thoughts of Chris and their night together as a coping mechanism for the anguish she is going through. In a conversation that we see, she informs him that she intends to depart once she reaches 18. Chris declares his love for her and his intention to follow her wherever she goes. They decide to take a motorcycle around the world, and Chris agrees when Sara requests a pink helmet. When Chris arrives with his motorcycle and the pink helmet he promised Sara, the scene changes. Chris inquires about Sara's location and whether or not she has contacted them yet. Dawn tells a falsehood, claiming that she always discussed leaving with him and that she fled with another man, Stevie. Chris, distraught, packs up the helmet he brought for Sara and heads out. On Sara's birthday 21 days later, Dawn comes downstairs and presents her with a red dress and a birthday cake, making her wear it. Sara responds that she wants to be freed when he asks what she wants. Dawn says that it's too early in response. Subsequently, she requests a TV, but he tells her she must earn it. He gives in when she begs for a clock. When she addresses him as Dad, he tells her to call him Don instead. It's hinted that she is raped again as he asks her to approach him. Sara has a plot to kill Don on day 38 using a weapon created out of a beef-can lid fastened to some wood. Wearing the same red outfit, she waits for him to descend. She hits him as he approaches, but he effortlessly dodges it, beats her, and probably attacks her again. Day 354 of the future shows Sara to be expecting Don's child. She gets ready for the baby by consulting a nursing book. Abruptly, she experiences excruciating pain and gives birth without the help of medical professionals. Marie is the name given to the girl born to her. Sara is raising her daughter and becoming pregnant once more after 4 years. When Don visits them, he gives them furniture like a table, cabinets, and a mattress. Sara even offers Don tea, seeming more at ease. He informs her that he has been promoted to a new office. He is pleased when Marie refers to him as Dad and shows him a drawing she created. When Sara informs him that there will soon be 3 of them, she begs him to let them go. He replies violently and goes upstairs to have dinner. Renee gets into a fight with Don over dinner, telling him she wants to hire a private eye because he never made an effort to find Sara. Don retorts that they have already spent more than $5,000 looking for her in Florida and that they would not be spending any more. He advises Renee to put Amy first and move on. Breaking plates, he screams and storms out. Later, Don presents Sara and Marie with a TV for Christmas, and Sara is ecstatic to have one at last. After giving birth to a son called Michael in year 7, Sara and her family move into the basement. Marie looks ill and has trouble breathing. Don gives Sara some medicines, but Sara claims they're not meant for kids and she's not sure how much is right. Don departs as she demands that Marie visit a physician. When Chris meets with Amy the following day, he informs her that he is still seeking for Sara. He tells her the lies Don told about Sara and Stevie escaping. Amy acknowledges that her father has mistreated her mother and expresses suspicions that he may have harmed Sara. She approaches Don later on and says he hurt Sara. Don is enraged by Renee's continued desire to work with a private investigator. Don drops his basement keys during their quarrel, and Amy retrieves them. When she snoops about the cellar, Don becomes angry and catches her. Sara and her kids play in the basement in the meantime. After some time, Sara gives birth to Thomas, a boy, who is her 3rd child. She persuades Don to leave the kid with Renee to raise after telling him there is no space for a 3rd child. Don accepts, and the following day he leaves the baby and a note from Sara requesting Renee to look after her infant daughter on the doorstep. When Renee discovers the baby and the note, she starts crying. After taking the baby, she enters the house but fails to notice a smaller note Sara left requesting that she contact the police as she is stuck in the basement. Don, regrettably, discovers the smaller note. After venting his wrath on Sara in the basement, he exits. After 14 years, Marie and Michael are already adults, and Don is now focusing on Marie when she is a teenager. Sara pleads with him to leave her alone, pointing out that she is only a young child. Because they have spent their entire lives confined to a basement bunker, the youngsters also experience social anxiety. They are ignorant of the severity of their predicament. It's raining outside and it's been 17 years. Thomas, Renee's grandson, and she spent some quality time together. Later, after Sara becomes pregnant once more, they discover a leak in the ceiling and begin using a spoon to dig their way out. The hole that Sara digs all night long leads to the front yard. She asks the neighbor for assistance by flashing her light. After noticing the light, the neighbor walks to Don's front door to tell him. Don gives the neighbor his peace of mind and sends him on his way. Don then descends the stairs and gives his pregnant daughter a severe beating, which results in her miscarrying. Don tells Sara about her 2nd son, Thomas, who lives right above them, after they have been held captive for 18 years. He said that Thomas wants to play football next year in addition to baseball because he is getting bigger and stronger every day. When Michael says he wants to play baseball too, Don responds that it all depends on how their mother acts, which makes Marie and Michael dislike Sara. When they finally beg to be let outside later that day, Sara becomes so distraught that she breaks down in tears on the ground, remembering her ex-boyfriend Christopher and the affection he once gave her. After realizing their error, the kids tidy up the mess. Upon awakening, Sara at last admits to them the truth about Dawn. She is Dawn's daughter, Renee is her mother, and Dawn is Renee's spouse. It makes sense that the kids are overburdened. Marie's asthma makes it difficult for her to breathe because of the basement's low air quality. Dawn confronts Sara about food rationing in the basement after 19 years of confinement. Dawn gets even more enraged as Michael tries to attack him out of anger. Michael is informed by him that despite Thomas's age, he is larger and stronger than him. Dawn's life is unraveling above ground. He gets into arguments with his wife all the time, he loses his job, and his house is foreclosed. He tries to kill Sara and the children while they sleep by using a hose to feed carbon monoxide into the basement's air vents since he is sick of looking after Sara and the children. When Thomas sees Dawn in the garage, he questions his grandfather's actions. Dawn says he's just going over his automobile with him. Dawn has a change of heart and abandons his plan once Thomas departs. They are still alive and sleeping when he goes to check on them in the basement. Marie needs medical attention after having a severe asthma episode in her 20th year. Dawn declines Sara's request to drive them to the hospital, but when she addresses him as dad, he changes his mind and offers to drive Marie to the hospital. Only Sara is permitted to go with him. Michael stays in the basement. When Sara eventually makes it upstairs after 20 years, she suffers an emotional breakdown but soon gets herself together and races Marie to the emergency room. It is the same scene that opened the movie. After Marie is saved by the doctors, a worried physician asks Dawn for her medical history and gives him a paperwork to complete. Dawn refuses to let Sara use the restroom, even if she begs him to. She exploits the opportunity to get assistance while he gets a fresh form after spilling water on his paperwork. After Sara tells the doctor everything, Dawn is taken into custody and sentenced to life in jail. Michael is also brought out of the basement alive. When Renee finds out the truth about her daughter's mistreatment at the hands of her husband, right in her home, she is appalled. The whole family moves in together. Additionally, Chris appears and hands Sara the pink helmet he had been holding onto for years, as a promise to her. They discuss their plans for the future as teenagers, and Chris apologizes for not pursuing Sara more at the time. They travel together as the film comes to a close. If so, please remember to subscribe, like, and share it in order to see more fantastic movie recaps. I appreciate you watching.